Well, hello, everybody watching online on Twitch.tv. If you're watching this later in archive, we're going to be talking a little bit here at Francis Parker School, of course, about the FTC release, Robotics, that has come out here today. We've got a lot of people in the background. Guys, what do you think about Robotics this year so far? Excited? It's a pretty cool looking game. So real quick before we start, can I just have you guys introduce yourselves and who our guest speakers going to be here today?
Hello, my name is Steve Margus. I'm a former coach of Dynamic Signals from Illinois, and I'm a volunteer and judge.
And I'm Nathan Satterfield. I'm on 3507 Robothiosis, and I'm one of the hosts of Fun FTC.
Yeah, we're excited to have all this going on here. So let me ask you guys first, Nathan. We're gonna start with you here. Is Roboruckus interesting game, right? So we see a lot in regards to the creators on the field, a lot of game pieces, a lot of scoring capabilities. What excites you the most about this game? When you saw the game animation, what really sparked in your mind? You're like, man, this game's gonna rock.
I'd say I really like that we get to hang. Well, sorry, not hang. We get to latch ourselves. Someone was just telling me about the hang versus latch. Gotta say latch. I really like that because I got to do a hang my freshman year, and I just think it's really fun. It's really cool for outreach bots where you could just suspend your robot on something and hang it. But I also like that there's just a lot to do in this game, and it's not as simple as it seems at face value, which is what we're going to be talking about over the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, I would say I'm intrigued by the crater. A lot of people are wielding bots custom fabricated as well as kit parts, and I think the crater and the height of the crater is going to create some interesting challenges and hopefully a lot of dynamic and variation in the robot designs this year.
If you guys have any questions, we are live in chat, by the way. Feel free to take at First Updates now. We'll be taking some questions for our hosts while we can. We'll be going over probably about the next 15, 20 minutes or so. So if you have any questions, once again, at First Updates now with your questions. So I'm going to let these guys kind of really take over a lot. So we're going to be talking about strategy and design, right? And kind of the game strategy and what's going on with the match. And how we might be able to build a rope based on it. So Nathan, can you talk about the game a little bit, and then kind of tie it into what we're doing here with, it's multiple robots on one weekend, right? Not just one robot, not really just two. I think three maybe. Yeah, 3 or 4 robots in one weekend here. So we're excited to do that. So Nathan, take it away.
Yeah, so there's a lot that's really happening with this. So I think I'll start with Autonomous. Steve, we'll start with Autonomous. So in Autonomous, I would say the strategy that you really want to follow is you want to start elevated. That's in really easy 30 points. You start hanging, and if you have that ability to elevate yourself and latch on, you can use that in Autonomous and then in the end game, such a dual purpose thing there. You'll get 30 points if you land the bot, and then later on you can get another 50 if you latch yourself back on. So that's 80 points just by suspending your robot off the ground, and I believe it's a minimum of 4 inches. So it's pretty simple. Your robot's 18 inches tall, and that latch is only, I think, 21 or 22 inches above the ground. So you just got to get up a tiny bit and lift your robot up a little bit. What are you doing? Relax. So, yeah, I'll let Steve give his thoughts on that.
Sure, yeah, I agree with that. I would say got to kind of look at it from a couple perspectives. A lot of teams in different areas are now starting to move into league play. And while you might be looking at what your robot can do at the end, we also need to think about what kinds of things can you do early in the season to be competitive. So for those teams that might be having challenges with lifting or anything like that, don't forget about the newest element, the team marker. Team marker is something that you can build and create some unique creativity for your team, some identity for your team, and get some scoring in. So make sure that you don't overlook the team marker. When you're talking about the crater, remember when we're talking about the crater, in does not mean completely in. And if we're only talking about parking, and parking is crossing a plane, I think a lot of teams have opportunity to be creative on how they do that. So don't miss that opportunity. Of course, the latch and the land are important, but if that's a challenge for you, make sure that you're contributing to your alliance.
Totally, yeah, and I think one of the biggest ways you can contribute to your alliance, and the easiest way, is by taking that team marker and putting it into the zone. I think teams should really look into trying to sample. Which sampling is taking the gold mineral off its starting platform, but I think that's really hard to do. So one of the ways that teams could increase their score in Autonomous or look into increasing their score is by collecting minerals and putting them into one of the two zones, so either the cargo hold, or the depot. We just got done doing multi-glyph in relic recovery, so teams have the skills to do vision and navigate, so you can apply those and transfer minerals from zones to zones. So that'll be a really interesting strategy to up your points, give yourself an extra 20, 25 seconds in starting that off.
So from ABABJI says, does the team marker have to start inside the 18 by 18, or is it like the Alliance flag, and can it be outside?
I believe from the video, we can spot check this and reconfirm, but I believe it must be inside the 18 by 18 area at the start of the match. And I don't have the specs on the design element, but I believe inside the 18 inches.
We did have one more question on here. And this is maybe something that we can get into for a discussion, Nathan, that I think would be a great idea, is OPV 24356 asks, are Mecanum wheels the right decision, or should I use something like a tank drivetrain? So do you want to get into driving a little bit later?
So we can talk about this more later, but I can answer this question since I was testing Mecanum earlier. Mecanum will work. I'm pretty sure it will work. We were using the Nexus Mecanums, so I would look into it. I don't know if it's necessarily needed for this game. One of the things you're going to have to think about is that your robot is high enough where your robot frame is not interfering with the the ring around the crater. Yeah, the crater perimeter. Yeah, that's the right word. It's day one, guys. Sorry. So if you've got a low-hanging robot frame, you're going to have issues with getting those Mecanum wheels, or any wheels, over the crater frame. So your robot has to be high enough, and your wheels have to be far enough away from your chassis in order for those to go over. So that goes for Mecanum and for any other types of wheels. So we'll talk about that as today progresses and tomorrow progresses, because all of our teams here are experimenting with different types of wheels, such as possibly Mecanum, Omni wheels, Coulson's, and some others.
And just one other note is, for those teams that haven't had a chance to explore the field yet, we have a field here. And two pieces of advice. One is that if you are a team that's going to be looking to score in the storage areas, they are pretty flexible. There's a lot of tolerance there for pieces. They don't have to be perfectly placed, so you're going to find that you have a lot of tolerance there and opportunity if you're that type of team. If you're a newer team and you're not quite ready to make that kind of move yet, again, you can contribute to your alliance. If you're a newer team, grabbing pieces out of the crater and moving them into your area, the depot, is an opportunity for you to score some points and maybe make a difference for your alliance early in the season. And again, don't forget, FTC is about iterate, iterate, iterate. So don't think that your early season robot is your end game. Think of it as a step towards progress.
One thing, as you mentioned the field a little bit, I want to talk about the mineral gold and silver, because earlier on the field you guys were testing how many were actually going in. So we've seen these pieces before. This isn't nothing new, right? But before I saw there were some mineral gold tests going into the field, into the scoring area. How many of those were you able to fit in, and what else have you determined from that field test?
Yeah, I was actually side by side with the Robotics team while they were running some of those early tests. One thing to be aware of, first of all, when we describe this, is that in the crater storage area, there is a lip that goes above the front end. Scoring below the plane of the lip is a score. So you're going to find that when you get in front of an actual scoring element, you're going to find that there's a lot of room there. We were able to get 66 of the gold pieces. We'll have to rename these. 66 of the gold pieces were able to fit by placing them carefully. So there's a lot of room and a lot of space to do that. We then watched them run a test where they ran a test of how many could they score in 30 seconds if only touching two at a time. There's a two-piece limit. There's a two-mineral limit. With the two-mineral limit, they were able to score about 35 to 40 into the scoring in just the autonomous period. If you randomize that and you simply pick them from the crater, moving back and forth by hand as a human robot, they were able to score 20. 20 is probably very aggressive, but 20 is a theoretical max based on the sampling we were doing. So picture somewhere between 0 and 20 as a reasonable objective.
So let's take a look here, Nathan. We just got handed a piece that's being made right now. So we'll get a battery for it because it looks like we got a linear slide possibly coming here. So see if we can get that hooked in. And Nathan, if you don't mind describing that for us a little bit once we get that in too. Once again, everybody, if you're interested, if you have any questions you'd like to ask at First Updates Now, if you're watching live, you can also ask questions in our Discord as well, too, if you'd like to join our Discord, !Discord. I want to give a big shout-out, by the way, to Andy Mark and Robotics for sponsoring these streams. We have multiple build teams going on with both Rev and Andy Mark kit parts and different parts of it. So let's take a look here. So, Nathan, can you kind of describe to me what's going on here and why is this slide being made?
I got it. Well, so this slide is, I'm still kind of looking at what it is. So this is the Rev linear slide kit version 2. So you can see these new plastic slides with the end caps and then the caps for the pulleys. So this is just a design we made so far. At some point it's going to interface into one of our robots. Whether this is part of the hang mechanism to get a claw or something on it, or if this helps us in scoring the minerals into the cargo holds. I'm not really sure, but as you can see, it works pretty well. I need to flip my battery in order to get it back down, but yeah, someone just handed this to me. There's a lot going on right now, so everyone's kind of building different subsystems, testing collectors, testing intakes. So the Rev Linear Slide Kit 2, my review is good. I like it. It works well. So I think we'll get back to our strategy discussion.
Just one note I guess I'd make for people. The question that usually comes up on kickoff day is what's the game, and the second question is what other games are like this game. So just to talk for a second, if you are a new team and you haven't seen old games, take a look at some videos on Rescue. The Rescue season included these elements. It included some opportunities to kind of pull yourself. It wasn't a straight lift, but they include similar elements, and you can get very creative ideas from some of these other teams. We are here at First to help each other. Some of those games and the teams really help us understand what kind of opportunities there are. So feel free to look at some of those videos for ideas if you're a newer team.
Yeah, make sure you look at also maybe some reveal videos from teams that year too would be a great idea. There's a lot of great resources out there that you can find some of these other teams going through. So let's talk a little bit strategy-wise in regards to like the robot actually doing some strategy here. So I'd really like to hear about there's some interesting things in regards to launching and what that means and how that's qualified. How are we going to score game pieces? What's kind of the first thing that pops in your head, Nathan?
So a lot of things pop in my head. The first thing about shooting that pops in my head is I would never do it. The space to get blocks and balls into the cargo hold is not that big. I mean, I think that that cone on top will funnel it back, but there's also a chance that the blocker ball will go into the wrong side because you can only put blocks and balls in one of the sides of the cargo hold, so it's kind of going to be random if you shoot. I think the best way is to have some sort of dump bucket that goes up and down, or a claw to pick in place. An idea I just came up with in my head is if you could have a double claw on two different arms. Some teams had this past year in Rescue. Not Rescue. I'm mixing up all my games. Relic Recovery. No, I know it starts with an R. You could have two claws, and you could pick up one, you could pick up the other, and then you could, if there are two blocks, you can put them both in the blocks, or you can put one in the ball, one in the block portion of the cargo hold. That's an interesting strategy. I think there's a few strategies that teams can take with this. One is you just choose one mineral type every time you go into the crater. You can do that. You can have a sorting mechanism of sorts. I mean, there's only two, so it shouldn't be that hard to sort from. Or you can do random collection and depositing, but if you get one block and one ball, you're going to have to go up, deposit, and then turn your robot around, go to the other side and deposit. Another strategy that I was thinking of is you could go into the crater, actually. There's no collection limit when you're in the crater. So you can go into the crater, you can pick up as many as you want, and you could just fling them out into the playing field. It'll open up more minerals to your alliance partners, but also your opponents. There's the double-edged sword, but it will also make everything faster. So I could see teams going and spending 10 or 15 minutes into the 10 or 15 minutes in the crater, flinging a bunch out, and then just going and scoring. I know someone just asked what do you think about a conveyor belt? That was OPV 23456. I definitely think a conveyor belt would work. You can park on the outside, stick some sort of claw or conveyor belt system in, and drag that out.
Yeah, I'd agree. If you haven't seen the fields yet, one of the things that you'll notice is I'll call it, for lack of a better word, I don't think it's named, the roof of the lander. The roof of the lander, if you're placing stuff relatively close to it, you'll get the deflection you want. As long as you're not too far away from it. If you're too far away from it, the objects, the heavy plastic that they seem to bounce out. So the closer you are to it, with a little bit of tolerance, they seem to be reasonable. One thing that Nathan said is very important. A lot of people that are in the room haven't had a chance to thoroughly read the manual yet. In the manual, it says very particularly that on the right-hand side of your scoring area are the blocks. On the left-hand side of your scoring area on the crater, on the lander, I should say the gold is on the right-hand side, the silver is on the left-hand side. So if you are not collecting with a purpose, there's a lot of driving back and forth that has to happen. So the second thing I guess you'd have to think about if you're going through these kinds of things is the lander takes up a good amount of the middle of the field. If you want to be able to maneuver through the lander's about 12 inches high off the ground. So if you have a robot that's a low profile, you might be able to come up with a design. We've seen some designs in the past that are low profile that expand. If you have a low profile robot, you might have more room to maneuver and drive on the field.
A couple questions as well from you guys. By the way, yes, Nathan is a student, Clint, if you're asking. So Nathan's a senior. So yes, we do have a student as part of this as well, too. And really, it's students that are really driving all this in these multiple robot builds. Once we switch back to our multiple cameras that we have after this, so we'll go about another 5 minutes on here. You'll see tons of students just working on multiple different robots out there. So a question from the unofficial fourth. Did your whole robot have to be in the landing zone or only part of it? I'm not sure what the context of that is. Must be in order to shoot, right? So somebody will look into that and see if we can get anything more out of that as well too. With that said, though, a couple other things we want to talk about here from overall strategy. I saw Nathan earlier doing some different types of wheel tests on there. We talked Mecanum, but tell me a little about some of the wheel tests, what you found out of that, and then we might take one other question and kind of wrap up from there before we get to all the other cameras going on.
I'm trying to. Here. Tyler, are there any other questions while I find the wheel type that I was using? I can't remember.
I think the question is probably more to do with parking. Landing is actually just being able to lower to the floor from autonomous. So when you're landing straight down from the lander, I don't think that's an issue. I think it's more parking. In parking, I'd have to verify, but I believe parking, it does not say entirely in or fully in. So as a result, I think you just have to cross the plane to be able to get the park for the crater. And here's Nathan.
Yeah, I've forgotten the name. So the wheels that I was testing with, so I tested some stealth wheels. The stealth wheels actually worked very well. They gripped pretty well. I was actually, the robot I tested stealth wheels with were the gray. Had gray in the front and black in the back, I believe. The gray is 30A durometer and the black is 60A. So those are pretty hard and they'll grip pretty well. I also tested some custom wheels that we had made. So if you check out our rescue robot from 2016, they work pretty well. Those are like half-moon discs. I would never recommend that teams ever use them, though. If you want to copy our design, I'll send you some drawings of it, but never do any non-circular wheel. Well, never do what we did in rescue. You can go look at our review if you want. Some other wheels I tested were, Mecanum. So those seemed to work pretty well, but we had some issues with the drivetrain being too low, too close to the wheels. Some will consider tread. Tread, I think, will definitely work. I haven't tested it yet. We haven't tested Omni wheels yet, but we should be doing that hopefully soon because I see 2, maybe 3 drivetrains in front of me right now that have Omni wheels on them. Outside of that, I think most wheel types will work. I think, as I was saying earlier on the stream, the biggest thing that will impact your ability to get over the crater is the height of your drivetrains. You need to be able to be high enough in order for your drivetrain not to interfere with that crater perimeter. though I will caution teams, think about whether it's really necessary in order to get into the crater. I think you can very easily compete in this game and have zero need to actually go into that crater.
So we're gonna wrap up here in just a moment. Is there anything else, maybe last words of advice or anything else you want to go through? And just a reminder, we will be doing a wrap up of the day where we'll see the progress of all the robots so far at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. So you can check that out. We also do have a giveaway from AnnieMark a little bit later on. So if you're interested in some free stuff, make sure you tune in at 5:30 p.m. Eastern for about a half hour, and you'll see some of that. So anything to wrap up what's going on so far, or any other major strategies or concerns you guys might have that you want to start out with?
We'll leave the close to Nathan. I guess I'll just simply say one thing that comes up every year as a coach: read the manual, read the manual, read the manual. And when you're done reading the manual, read the forums. Make sure you get out there in the forums, find out what's going on, get interpretations. It's very critical. Don't make a design decision that you're going to regret later because you didn't know about a role. Once you get through those things and you're pretty clear on that, go for it and be creative.
I think at some point you should start working on hanging so that you can latch on, you can start up and then end up. But for now, I'd say for today and for the next few weeks, test a bunch of different collection mechanisms. There's so many things you can do. We've been testing them all day. We'll show them as we start developing them. You can use compliant wheels. You could use like zip ties or surgical tubing spun around. You could also do a pick and place just using claws. So be creative. Eventually someone will come up with the meta and figure out what we need to do, but we haven't done that yet. So stay tuned. Keep watching. We'll check back in eventually.
One thing before we leave, somebody asked about the Rev color sensor. I don't believe we've used that yet, have we? Or is there something you can talk about that?
So I haven't used it, but I was talking with our programmer and our programming mentor about this. Well, the Rev color sensor is good. It's always been good. The new one, I assume, is even better. It seems like the casing's more strong. I feel like you're going to in order to recognize, if you're looking to use the color sensor to recognize the difference between the white and the yellow, I'll just say the hardest part about that is going to be lining it up. I'd say you should probably look into using UVC cameras this year, because I'm pretty sure that there are vision profiles with the blocks and the balls in the Vuforia library, so you could use that vision camera in order to sense whether it's a gold particle or a silver particle, and in which of the three spots it's in. So yes, the color sensor is good.
That's going to wrap it up from here in initial game strategy and breakdowns. Don't forget, you can still ask more questions by taking that first updates now. We're going to see you back at 5:30 p.m. Eastern for our recap of the day, but we're going to get back to our build teams and check them out as well. But if you have any questions as we go through, add first updates now and check back in with us at 5:30 p.m. for a recap of today's event and a giveaway from AnnieMark. And thanks again to AnnieMark and Robotics for their sponsorship and donation of the awesome kits you'll see built here today. Thanks, everybody.